Hey everybody, Tim Dorman with Eagle Ridge Wealth Advisors back again, and today I'm going to talk about a couple that has about 2.7 million in investable assets, and they are 62 and 58, and they want to know how much they can spend in retirement if they were to retire right now. So they're in a pretty good situation. One thing that they're concerned about, that is a big concern of everyone that wants to retire before 65 and get Medicare, is how much is their insurance going to cost in those years between when they retire and Medicare, and can they afford it? Now, these guys are in a pretty good situation, as I'm going to show here, but let's go ahead and break down a little bit of the details. So as you can see by looking at the screen here, their net worth is actually 3.1 because they have a $400,000 house that's paid for. But as you can see here too, if you look, about 85% of their assets are tax deferred. And what do I know right away when I see that? Typically, if I see a large tax deferred asset or holdings, that means that Roth conversions are probably going to be something that we can use. That's not always the case. If people have everything in a Roth already, or if they have a large joint account or a taxable account, individual account, then you can't even do Roth conversions, right? Because you can only convert from a pre-tax account like an IRA or a 401k. But typically when we see this now, because we often see large tax deferred accounts because you've been told to do that for the last 30, 40 years or so by your advisor or your company. And so this is what we often see, but not always. But anyway, I'm going to walk you through what to look at, whether or not Roth conversions might be something for you. And of course, you could always reach out and we can go through that together. Okay, so as you can see here, large tax deferred accounts. I'm going to take you over to their blueprint. But as you can see, 3.1. And as you can see, it's Charlie and Lucy again. I have lots of clients named Charlie and Lucy, don't I? Charlie's 62, Lucy is 58. The lion's share of their assets is in Charlie's 401k. As you can see there, almost 2.2. He also has a Roth IRA, not as much in there, but 83, but they got it started, which is nice. They have a joint account of checking, about 100,000 in there, and then they have a joint brokerage account, about 150, and then of course, as you can see, the primary home with 400,000. And then, of course, Lucy has an IRA and then a Roth as well, just not quite as large as Charlie's. Okay, so first primary question is, do we have enough to retire? Well, they told me they're going to probably spend around $8,500 in retirement, so they're in pretty good shape. The plan is actually showing them finishing with a moderate growth portfolio, which is about 8.5% a year is what it average. We can raise that and lower that based on what conversations that we have with our prospective clients or our clients. But as you can see here, it shows them in really good shape, actually spending that much. They're still they could finish if they live to 90 with about 15 million. So they've got a lot of room to work here. Because I always want you to remember too that the Monte Carlo, I don't like to use these probabilities. Do we pay attention to them? Yes, but 97% probability of success. If people see that, a lot of times they think, hey, we're in really good shape. But sometimes it makes people actually underspend what they could. If you're about 50%, that means you have about 50% chance of being good and a 50% chance of running out of money. But that's never really going to happen because this is just probability of success. Well, we're going to be changing with this all the time. So I don't like to use Monte Carlo simulations with my clients. What I prefer to do is say, hey, look, if you have a $2.7 million nest egg, and of course, a lot of it's tax deferred, so that's not all theirs. You know, a big chunk of that belongs to Uncle Sam, right? But what we're going to try to do is thread that needle and lower lifetime tax liability over their lifetime. But if they've got 2.7 million, and I can say, hey, you know what? I can safely send you about 145 or 150,000 a year out of that nest egg for the next 30, 40 plus years, if we follow a few rules, and what we call that our guardrail portfolio, which is usually between 5 and 6% is what we can send clients out of their nest egg. So as you can see here with their cash flow summary, they said they could spend $8,500 a month on living expenses. But what we have here is actually, so the $8,500 and then also healthcare, because they're going to have, I put about an estimate of about $12,000 a piece in there. And there is a company that we can work with to get subsidies to make sure that we're kind of threading that needle too with your ACA, if you're going to use the silver plan in the ACA to try to get benefits to lower your health care between when you actually retire, if you retire before 65 and 65. So this might actually be a little bit high, but I like to hedge and be, a little bit conservative with the numbers. So I ran them a little high. But here we go. We have, I estimated $12,000 a person for Charlie and Lucy, and it's inflation adjusted. That's why these go up. And then as you can see, in 2026, Charlie hit 65. So his healthcare costs go down. And then Lucy's a little bit younger, so hers go down about 2031 when her Medicare kicks in. So we have, total healthcare costs the first 3 years of over $25,000. And then it drops down a little bit for another few years until we have Lucy kick into Medicare as well. But anyway, even with this higher healthcare cost, they're in pretty good shape. Okay, so now that we have illustrated the healthcare costs for the few years before Medicare kicks in, let's go ahead and go back to that tax deferred situation and say, you know what? These guys look like they're in pretty good shape as far as having enough to spend and live comfortably in retirement. Let's see what we can do with their lifetime tax liability because they have that large tax deferred account. So we go into the software here, and what we need to do is try to find where's the best place to thread the needle for these guys. First of all, I want you to take a look at withdrawal sequence. People don't realize how big a difference this can make, but just withdrawing from the proper account at the proper time over their retirement is going to enable them to save $1.3 million in taxes just by doing that, or having $1.3 million more tax adjusted ending, which all these plans are run to age 90. But just by doing that, making sure you're withdrawing from the proper account at the proper time allows for a much higher ending portfolio value. Basically means that you're keeping more of the money rather than it going to Uncle Sam. Okay, but what we're going to do now is say, okay, we're withdrawing from the proper accounts at the proper time rather than just willy-nilly taking $50,000 from each account. We're paying attention to how we're going to do that. Also, on top of that, let's do Roth conversions. But let's look at the software and say for each scenario whether or not it works. So we'll say if we fill up the 10% bracket, look, now they're going to have almost $1.7 million more. So they already have 1.3, but it's still adding value, right? We're still saving money in taxes. Now let's say we fill up the 12% bracket. More so yet, right? $2 million total. Now let's go ahead and go up to the 22% bracket. $2.3 million more in that tax adjusted ending amount values at the end of their plan if they do Roth conversions and make sure they withdraw from the proper account at the proper time. That's a lot, right? That's a big deal. Now it also, there comes a point usually when it's counterproductive, as you can see here. So we say, hey, we're going to fill up the 24% bracket. Well, that's not quite as good. We're saving a little bit, but not near as much. So for these guys, this is the bracket. Filling up the 22 or 25% bracket after the TCJA is set to expire is going to be the best way for them to end up with the largest after-tax net worth at the end of their retirement plan, or all along, obviously, to use for expenditures or whatever they want. So they're in pretty good shape. Now, what I'm showing here is if we do the Roth conversions over time, it's going to actually also have them not only have a higher net worth, but obviously they're going to spend another about $1.2 million less in total taxes than the current plan, which obviously is great, right? Because we don't want to pay Uncle Sam any more than we have to. Now, this is their current plan. Right? This is what's going to happen to their tax rate as RMDs kick in later in life or they start withdrawing just to live on. Now, with our proposed plan, as you can see, that really drops this up here, this big mountain out here. Now, not only is that going to reduce future tax rates because you're not going to be in our higher progressive marginal rates, but you're also not going to have to worry about our Parts B and D Medicare premium, which are based off your adjusted gross income. And if those get too high, then you're going to have to start paying more on your Parts B and D premium, even when your RMDs kick in. So you want to be mindful of that. And in this situation, filling up the 22% bracket between retirement and RMD age is going to be the best scenario for Lucy and Charlie. So we're definitely going to be able to do some good tax planning for them. Okay, and what we have here is their safe withdrawal rate. Now, as I mentioned, we want to keep most people between 5 and 6%. We can go a little bit higher than that for a few years. But in general, we want to keep people between 5 and 6% throughout their lifetime if we can. And as you can see, these guys are in good shape here. They're actually 5.5, the first few years, and that's because they're having to pay higher healthcare costs out of their pocket. Then it drops down as Social Security kicks in, and then Medicare starts covering more medical costs, as you can see. And their withdrawal rate goes down quite a bit. So, as I mentioned earlier, they're going to finish, if they do this, they're going to finish with quite a bit at the end of their life, right? At the end of their plan, what was it? 15 million. Let's go back and take a look. So yes, if you look here, it's actually showing that even with them spending $8,500 a month and covering their expensive healthcare costs until Medicare kicks in, they're going to still finish with quite a bit in their plan, right? 15 million. So they could retire tomorrow and still be in really good shape. So what we're going to do is say, okay, You guys are in great shape. What if you actually want to kick this up? Let's see what happens. Let's say we take it to $13,000 a month. And sometimes this happens when you show people, but the biggest thing is it gives people peace of mind, right? Knowing, hey, look, I can do this. So even if we kick that up to $13,000 a month, it's still showing them finishing with about $5 million in assets. So these guys are in great shape for retirement, which of course is the biggest concern. They're higher healthcare costs in the meantime between when they retire and Medicare if they're retired right now. The biggest thing is, yes, they are able to retire. Again, I'm not big on the Monte Carlo probability of success, because basically what that's saying is, we have a probability of, if you're 100%, then that means that you're probably definitely underspending what you could in retirement. And if you want to spend more to be happy, then do it. If you're a 50-50, then you have a 50% chance of running out of money and a 50% chance of not spending enough. So you want to thread that needle with your life. But again, this is not going to be something that we're going to use without making adjustments all along. And another reason that I like to use our guardrails as opposed to probability of success, let's say I say, okay, out of your 2.7 million, we can give you $145,000 a year out of that to last 30, 40 plus years. But if or when the market goes down by 30, 40, 50%, well, rather than just saying your plan has failed, you're not going to make it, well, we're just going to say, hey, we're going to have to take a 10% haircut on what we're sending you. We're going to have to tighten our belts a little bit while we let the stock market bounce around and come back up. And that's why we have a war chest for all of our clients. But them saying, hey, we're going to go from spending $145,000 a month to $130,000, well, at least that allows them to say, oh, okay, well, yeah, I can tighten my belt a little bit if the economy goes down or my investments go down. Well, it still gives them something to look at, something tangible to think about, right? $130,000 is easier to understand than saying 60% margin of success or probability of success. What is that? So anyway, long story short, Lucy and Charlie they've done great. $2.7 million nest egg. A large part of that is tax deferred. So we're going to be able to do some great tax planning for them, save them over $1 million in taxes, and also allow their net worth to be a couple $1 million higher at the end. They are in great shape. They can retire tomorrow and in all likelihood have a great retirement. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Once again, Tim Dorman here, founder of Eagle Ridge Wealth Advisors. And if you would like to see how we help our clients get the most out of their financial lives in retirement, please visit us at erwealth.com, and we hope to see you there.